We've spent the last year and a half listening to folks who have been using the map and sharing with us both how it worked for them, how it didn't work for them, and what additional functionalities they'd like to see on the map. It didn't take us too long to discover that we actually were going to have to change platforms to respond to most of your feedback. So we've managed to do that, and we have relaunched the map on a new platform. I'm delighted to say we're well over 12,000 organizations at this point, all of whom have been vetted against the criteria that were established by a group of nonprofit leaders in the very first time we ever met in Washington, D.C. 2+ years ago. So what we want to do with you today, we believe we really listened. You're going to have a chance to actually see the way we've changed how the map works. And hopefully we have met your expectations. We also know that there are other functionalities that could be very valuable, particularly in the network area. You'll see that we've improved the network map substantially since the last time you looked at it, but we know there's many other distances that we can go. We've had a primarily geographic focus in terms of connecting organizations for more collaboration, and we're beginning to understand by listening that sometimes that collaboration way exceeds any initial geographic boundary, which we also will be able to support. So I want to introduce you to the newest member of our team, Anna Corning, who has been working very diligently with Christina Beckvar, who's been with us also from the beginning, to actually create these functionalities on the new platform. Anna is now going to take us through a demonstration of the map, and we'll then come back together in a plenary session for anything you'd like to tell us about what you see.
Thanks, Carolyn. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so this is V2 of the Healthy Democracy Map, and I'm just going to walk you through some of the new features that we've added. It's a big upgrade in terms of kind of the ability to interact and use the filters and all the information that we've been collecting across all these organizations. So on the left-hand side, you can see a list of organizations, and that's right now there's no filters selected, so that is the entire universe of organizations. And across the top, you see the variety of filters that are available: category of work, states, national, and local regional networks. And you can also search across keywords, name of organizations, cities, anything that we have in terms of their data. You can search using the keyword function. So on the left here, we can click any organization. It will automatically zoom you in to the area where that organization is. You'll be able to see some of the things around it. And we are calling this the organization pop-up. So you can see a lot more information about all the organizations. So the URL, the organization title is a link that will take you to the organization's website. You can see their city and state. Also, you can see their mission, the contact info that we have for them, the assigned category of work, and any networks that they're a part of, which also have links, if we have them, to their websites. So you can kind of get a glimpse of all of the organization's information at once. So let me reset. So I'm going to clear filters. It pans you back out to see the entire US. And another thing that we heard a lot from folks is the ability to be able to filter, select multiple filters at once. So I'll show you how that works. So here we have our categories of work. You can see the definitions we have for each of those categories. And you can select one. I'm going to select civic media. And then you can additionally select a state, and it'll bring you into that state, and you can see all of the organizations that fall into that category of work in that state. And you can again click on them, see any details that you'd like about that organization. And again, clear the filters will reset you and zoom you back out. The last feature that I want to show you is the network option. So we have broken them down into national networks and local and regional networks. And across both, you can multi-select multiple organizations at once. You can see on the drop-down how many organizations on the map are associated with each network and the mission for each of those networks. And if you select at one of those networks, you can see all the organizations across the country, across the range of categories of work that they fall into. And again, you can select any of the organizations and see the relevant details. This is especially useful if you're trying to see specific clusters or overlaps between your work and other work going on in certain regions or in different areas, categories of functions. So that is a little overview of the new version of the map. Again, like the main themes are just the multi-select filters and being able to see all of the organization information that we have available. Matt,
Thank
did
you.
you?
A
Thank you,
couple,
Anna. Thank you, Anna. Before we go into specific opportunities for you to talk with folks in breakout groups, I want to share one other way that the map is being used right now that we're discovering has a lot of impact. Some of you on the call know that a documentary film was made of the work that America Speaks did in New York City after 9/11. The title of the film is 9/11 Reclaiming Ground Zero. And at that stage, this was way early before the kinds of technologies we have now online. But we had brought together 5,000 Americans from New York City who were demographically representative. And the decisions they made that day completely changed what happened in rebuilding Ground Zero. If you go there today, you'll see the memorial, which is quite stunning, thousands of trees, a performing arts center, a transportation hub. All of those were the high priorities of the public. What I'm doing when I do screenings of the movie is at the end of the movie itself, after people have a chance to share their reactions and ask questions, I literally are saying, what are the lessons out of this work from 2002 that are profoundly important in the state of democracy today? And I then use the Healthy Democracy map. If I'm in Maine, I go from the United States map to the Maine map, where I highlight the fact that there's a citizen assembly happening on education policy in Maine this year. You know, we have a real problem in this country with the national narrative that we are fed, which is always the bad news. And yet there's so much good news going on across the country. And just as an example, in one of the screenings that I did, it happened to be in Delaware, where there was a member of the League of Women Voters. Well, the League of Women Voters is one of the extraordinary foundational organizations in the country working on voter turnout, voter registration. And yet her response to the map and seeing it was, oh my goodness, I need to get the chapters of the League in my state engaged in these other kinds of democratic renewal and renovation, given the threats to our democracy. So we ourselves continue to look for new ways to use the map. I think that Rebecca will actually put into the chat the ability to take a look at the screening of the documentary. And if any of you are interested in contacting or bringing a screening to your organizational network or to your community, just send me an email. And I think, Anna, are you the person that's going to put us in breakout groups?
Matt's going to kick us off
Oops,
next.
sorry, Matt.
come on, Karen. You want the No, I think what we want to do is kind of take advantage of all of your ideas, all of you on the call, your ideas and experiences to kind of help us figure out, what you are using the map for, what you want to use the map for, how we can improve the map. And improvements can mean things that are technological changes to the way that the platform works, but also could be like, non-technological things. Here's what I would need most from the National Civic League or from other groups or from other leaders in my state to help me do some of the things I want to do related to the map. So we've got a poll here that will offer some different possibilities here that you can click on, and that will help us form breakout groups so that we can figure out how many people are interested in each thing, and then we can spend a little bit of time talking together, zeroing in on these things. There's also an other category, and so if you are inclined to pick other, please tell us what you mean by that, and we'll see how we might be able to accommodate that as well. You can do that, by the way, in chat as well as just unmuting yourself and speaking up. And so that's up now, right, Anna? People can click away at it? Okay.
We'll just give folks a few seconds to finish taking the poll.
And do you have to close the poll to show it? I think you can, people can still, you could probably share the results now, right? And people can still contribute to it, Anna?
Let's see.
Or not.
I think almost everyone's taken it. So
yeah, why don't you go ahead and share the results here? And did anyone pick other or want to propose an other?
Mike has his hand up.
Mike. I didn't see that. Where are you, Mike? Go ahead, Mike.
I'm, first of all, outstanding what you guys continue to do with this thing. Unbelievable. And thank you guys for continuing to keep making this better. It may have fallen into one of the buckets, but there is I think it's just my impression as someone who's been part of the community, appreciates the mapping of the community, have looked at it through the coalition lens, through the organization lens, but more recently has looked at it from the individual, especially the individual who's not currently in our bubble and in our community, the masses, if you will. And I'm talking, like I said, all the way down to the individual and looking at how the map and the sorting and the filtering works for the average person who might be trying to figure out how to navigate our community. The map presents a tremendous opportunity to that group. So if that's the other that I was referring to.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. So so that other, you're right, is not represented here. It's kind of like more a person who might find groups that are or sets of groups who are doing any one of the other things that are listed here.
And I appreciate all these things, just for the record.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Well,
all right, why don't we
go ahead. No, I would just say we were going to use kind of the responses from these to guide people into breakout rooms where you can have a little bit more discussions about kind of what do the specifics look like around these topics, and then we'll come back and discuss. So I can do that now.
And we're giving everyone 20 minutes, right, Anna? Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope everyone had some good conversations. I know our group had a lot of great thoughts floating around. We have about 15 minutes left of the meeting. I want to spend about 10 or so to give each of the groups an opportunity to just share a little bit about what your breakout room talked about, any kind of interesting anecdotes. Just so the other groups can kind of hear from you. So I can ask our group leader, Michael, to kick us off maybe, and we can go from there.
I'm not sure how I must have missed the election, how I got elected leader of our group, but I'm happy to just share a quick anecdotal piece of the conversation we had because I think there's a good lesson in it. we were talking about volunteerism and the idea of sort of looking at this. Anna posed the question to us, how could the system help us as organizations, get to the point where somebody finds you and is interested enough and maybe sends you an email. And we kind of stumbled through a discussion about that, but the idea of being able to sort um, based on the category, there's a question for the future about being able to get more granular within those categories. There's major goals of those organizations. I think it used to be called topics in the form, but as organizations are able to give more information. But for now, in absence of that, or in addition to that, you have we talked about the fact, and Anna tested it while we were talking, that if you did put in a keyword, and to test it, we just use like ranked choice voting, and that not only then did the filter based on maybe keywords in the organization's descriptions or whatever, but a real helpful hint is that it also updated the map based on that keyword search. So if I was in Georgia looking for ranked choice voting, I might not know to look for Better Ballot Georgia, but if I did what Anna tested and then zoomed in on Georgia, it would show me a much more narrowed focused list based on my keyword search. So we just thought that was an interesting thing to share.
Great, thanks, Michael. Is there someone from the Finding Collaborators and Partners group that likes to share?
I'm happy to share for us. I took the notes. We had a great discussion about how folks are using it, and we also had a lot of good feedback on how to accomplish that a little better. So one of the things that we've been discussing is how to make those connections more natively on the map. So, a lot of folks we've talked a lot about maybe adding in some sort of communication into the map itself, like, a signal, some sort of thing. A lot of folks, especially maybe some organizations, they're not going to want to be added to a signal group. They just want to get an email. So regardless, one of the things we were talking about, a call to action, is maybe having a regional kind of group define, like, hey, we want to convene the folks in this region, and maybe send an email and have hey, it's a good starting point for the conversation, right? Like, we're all on this map, this resource together, and it's a good way to just start a conversation with others working in your area. So that was a big takeaway, I think. And then one of the other pieces is just we had a lot of technical feedback. Specifically, thank you all for, I can't wait to talk to you about it, Anna, and kind of dig into that a little bit. But yeah, I think if one of the big takeaways that I want to surface to everyone else on the call is that if you have ideas on how the map can be a platform, not just to find people, but to connect with them, please follow up. And if you're thinking about it later, email the team. I know they just put the emails in the chat, so that would be really helpful.
Great, thanks so much, Christina. And then I think the last group was the research and landscape analysis.
For anyone in our group to jump in, but at a high level, we talked a little bit about, a lot of interesting conversation around our the functionality and how to build the functionality out. But some notable things that the folks in the are looking to connect, but also think about the landscape. And part of that theme that I'm sort of picking up on is some fragmentation depending on the category of work, or some differentiation in how we define democracy. And people are really trying to think about this the map as a way to sort of connect and understand who's in the space, and how to sort of build those sort of connections. We've had some questions around the taxonomy and how to make that a little bit visible, the relationship of our goals, and thinking about our categorization a little bit. And so we know that we've had a few conversations around how we have a little bit more nuanced vetting of some of the organizations and those connections across networks through our goals as well. So that was useful. What else? Did I miss anything in there? And then we were just basically mentioning as well that, for those of you that are interested in building and helping us with build out the map a little bit, in your state, and providing more. Because this, of course, if you have more, you have a bigger landscape to sort of draw upon. We encourage you to provide any organizations and help us with that. And we're convening statewide calls, building towards that to reach out.
Great. So Nick, I was gonna pass it to you. I think you teed it up nicely for our next poll.
All right. So in thinking about functionalities, and we talked a little bit about this in our group, we're going to put a poll up here in a second about what should NCL prioritize building next. More interactive data layers. So we want different filters. How about storytelling and case studies? Would you like to learn more about the work that people are doing, or examples? In terms of prioritization, volunteering opportunities and matching, communication between organizations, crisis response tools, filling map gaps, and other.
I see we can pick more than one answer. Is it more useful for us to pick all that are interesting or our highest priority?
I think highest priority would be great, but if there's more than one of those, that's also okay. And I was just gonna answer the question that Michael had in the chat about, can you touch on the button request data and how would you use that? Oh, Rebecca answered it in the chat already, so that's great. But yeah, basically you can just send it allows you to send us an email, and we'd set up a conversation to see if there's, what you're exactly looking for and how we can assist. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll. And Matt, I think you were gonna help us dissect this poll.
Did anyone pick other? And while we're waiting here, no.
I don't see any others. Nope.
Okay. There it is. Okay, so fill in the gaps. So the data that makes sense as kind of an ongoing priority, is making sure that we've got more and more accurate data as we go. Communication between organizations. I guess we've delved into this somewhat in terms of is it email lists? Is it signal groups? Is it different kinds of ways for people to connect between the organizations, but definitely open to other ideas about what would make most sense for people. More interactive layers, so filters, overlays, insights. One thing we haven't actually kind of touched on, I think, today is kind of the idea of having layers that show things like events that are happening, or data on civic health in this particular area. Or I don't know if people have kind of thoughts about what types of layers that you might want to see.
And are you asking that as a question?
Sure.
Well, I didn't know. I just wanted to go back because we had a deep discussion with Anna in our little breakout group about that more granular search that I kind of alluded to when I gave our report out of our group. That the broad heading of a category might get you close, but if you're really still relative, it just doesn't get you all the way there down to that specific maybe organization that's doing something you might really be interested in, or the other way around. Is that part of that option that you just had on the poll of more filtering capability? Would that be part of that, or is that something different? Do you understand my question?
I'm not sure.
I was one of the options just now. It's not on the screen anymore, but was more filtering layers or something like that. And Anna, maybe do you understand the question I'm asking? putting the idea that more granular searching, is that part of that, or is that layering thing, filtering things, something different?
Yeah, I think it's maybe a little bit of both. I mean,
Both, yeah.
filtering and searchability can only get as granular as the information that organizations provide us and that we are able to pull and have in our database. So, that I think comes into what organizations are able to share around like what they say their key areas of work are and things like that. But we did talk about the goals as an additional level of granularity of filters that we will be adding in the future. It's just a process to get all the organizations tagged appropriately. And the current keyword search right now provides an extra layer of flexibility with searching across organizations.
Now, Rebecca, I think we were going to say a little bit more about getting more people involved in their area.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were gonna launch another poll, but I think we're a small enough group. So yeah, feel free to go ahead and type your short answers in. Looking for ways for us to like there are clearly, especially if you start like categorize sorting by civic news and Nebraska, there are huge swaths of the map that are left undotted. And so just looking for, ideas, suggestions for how we might build out the map in those areas. Like those might actually be civic deserts, for lack of a better word. Carolyn would point out that deserts can be lovely places, and we shouldn't use that term derogatorily. But you know what I'm saying. There are places where there's sort of a dearth of civic health going on, and that certainly does exist. But we do want to make sure that the map represents accurately the many actors that are in places. And so we've got some upcoming state calls that we're hoping will help us fill that out. Working with you all to get that filled out. We've got a bulk ad. If you work within a network and want to completely add your full network, we can do it that way. But yeah, we'd just love to spend a couple of minutes if there are any ideas percolating for how we might kind of build out some of those gaps. That would be great.
I mean, I think as like a random person using the map, it feels like the most important part is like the completeness of the number of organizations on the map, and that getting more details about them feels like that's the information that's harder to keep current. And so like less is more in some ways on the map. Like if you want to go more detailed, and in some ways maybe even like each state could choose to have more detail about like how to connect within that state or whatever. But I feel like at least at first glance, like the huge value of the map at first is to have an actual national view. And I think what you were just saying, Rebecca, about whether we call them deserts or whatever, it's misleading right now because there's, places where the information just isn't entered yet. And so,
Right.
but it's really exciting. There's a lot of different things it can do, but for my vote, which you did not ask for, just having the data at first is the most, like having the dots feels like the biggest part.
Great. I tend to agree for what it's worth. I'm a big advocate of kind of building out our current data set.
So we got Robbie and then Kenny, I think both with hands up.
Everyone.
Go ahead.
Rebecca, or did the person want to
Go for it. Go for it. Yeah.
Great. This will be quick. Just thinking off the top of my head, Rebecca, I wonder if like a task force, like say there's a state in New England that hasn't entered into the map. I wonder if like a neighboring states would be able to kind of folks in those states would be able to kind of network their way to figure out the answer to the question, like who has this information in New Hampshire, for example. and like maybe there's all America City participants who have that information, because that's sort of what I'm thinking too, is if it's a volunteer submitted map, I wonder if it's more a matter of like who are the connectors that we haven't reached out to yet who would be able to provide the data that we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll go check out.
Yeah.
Cool. Two quick thoughts. One, this is grasping a little bit of like connecting some dots, but I'm wondering if for organizations that do not have a clear geographic frame, if their inclusion in the map makes sense. Like I'm looking at Monty's points about PolicyLink, and I work with PolicyLink, and the diffuse efforts do not contribute to an understanding of geography and context in place, in my opinion, in work. So there's that part, and then the second part just disappeared. All right, that's all I got.
Anna
Email it.
is playing around with some features to help us deal with just that kind of dilemma, which has been a dilemma since the very beginning of how do we represent statewide, regional, or even national work. So she's got some cool like potential like heat mapping features that we're working on. So we are well aware of that issue. There's not like a clear, easy way, clean way to deal with that. But we are figuring that out. And if we have any techie folks on the call that want to help us try to crack that code, we are all ears. All right, Matt, do you want to close us out with how to stay involved and where we're going?
Well, yeah, well, as we keep saying, we love to keep getting ideas, commentary, suggestions from all of you. So please keep sending them our way, however is easiest for you. We've got, as we said, 3 state calls coming up: Alaska, Florida, and Iowa, and probably a couple others in the works as well. So if there's one that you want to help convene in your state, please, or be part of the ones I just mentioned, please let us know. And thank you again for all of your ideas and all your support and all of the interest that you've shown us throughout this whole map building journey. Thanks, everybody.